Pay attention to 29-year-old Ryan Poston. It's the evening of October 12th, 2012. Ryan is getting ready for a date with Miss Ohio. He has less than 3 hours to live because his ex-girlfriend, Shayna Hubers, has just found out about the date. Earlier that evening, she told a clerk at a shopping mall that she was going to kill him. The woman Ryan tried to leave, the woman he tried to escape, is now standing at his front door. She isn't there to talk. She isn't there to argue. She's there with a handgun. And inside that apartment, Shayna Hubers will shoot Ryan Poston in the face, killing him. When police arrive and ask her why she did it, she doesn't cry. She doesn't panic. She laughs. She dances around the room. And she says, I gave him the nose job he always wanted. Ryan Poston was a successful attorney working in Cincinnati, Ohio. Born in Kentucky and educated internationally, attending school in the Philippines and Switzerland, he was described as a laid-back, easygoing guy who'd built his own law firm by age 29. He was professional, valued appearances, believed looks mattered for a young lawyer. He was the type of person who had his whole future ahead of him. Shayna Hubers was a psychology student at the University of Kentucky. She was 19 when she met Ryan on Facebook in 2011. He'd seen photos from her spring break and added her as a friend. She was connected to his step-cousin. Shayna was academically gifted, attending university on a music scholarship, graduating cum laude in 3 years. She was pursuing a master's degree in school counseling. She was very pretty, very talented, and she was obsessed with Ryan Poston. Over 18 months, their relationship was volatile. They broke up multiple times. Friends described Ryan treating Shayna like a yo-yo, pushing her away and bringing her back. But the intensity never diminished. Text message evidence would later show Shayna sometimes sent Ryan 50 to 100 texts a day. The relationship was rocky, obsessive, full of jealousy and deceit and rage. By October 2012, Ryan was trying to permanently end things. He'd arranged a date for the night of October 12th with Audrey Bolte, who'd been crowned Miss Ohio USA in 2012. They planned to meet at a bar in Milford, Ohio, for drinks at 9:30 p.m. Ryan confided in his stepfather that he was afraid to tell Shayna about the date. He knew she wouldn't take it well. Shayna's friends testified she was aware she was losing him and feared it could be real this time. Hours before the shooting, Shayna downloaded a picture of Audrey Bolte onto her computer. That afternoon, she went to a mall where a salesperson noticed she was very upset, stating she'd found out her boyfriend was seeing someone else. The clerk heard Shayna say multiple times, "I'm going to kill him." On the night of October 12th, Shayna arrived at Ryan's condominium in Highland Heights. What happened next would be told through Shayna's own words that would change multiple times, but always include one consistent detail. She shot Ryan Poston 6 times. According to Shayna's account to the 911 operator, they engaged in a verbal and physical altercation. She claimed Ryan beat her and tried to carry her out of the house. She said she came back inside to get her belongings, and Ryan reached for a gun on the table. She grabbed it from his hand and pulled the trigger. But here's what makes her story chilling. In her 911 call, Shayna stated, "He was twitching, so I shot him a couple more times just to make sure he was dead because I didn't want to watch him die." She explained Ryan was making funny noises, and she shot him again to stop the twitching because she knew he was going to die anyway. Think about that admission. She didn't shoot him in self-defense and then call for help. She shot him, watched him twitch, and then shot him additional times to finish the job. Those weren't defensive shots. Those were execution shots, delivered to a dying man lying helpless on the floor. Shayna dialed 911 herself. The transcript reveals a chaotic mixture of confession and justification. She immediately told the operator, "I killed my boyfriend in self-defense." When asked if he was dead, she confirmed, "He's completely dead." Despite claiming Ryan had thrown her into the couch and thrown her across the room, she admitted to the operator, "I don't have any injuries." When police arrived, they found Ryan Poston dead from multiple gunshot wounds. The physical evidence didn't align with Shayna's account of a violent struggle. Highland Heights Police Chief Bill Birkenhauer noted the living room was orderly. The first officer on scene, David Fornash, testified he saw no evidence of a struggle. Items on the table and bookcase, books, smoking pipes, were undisturbed, not knocked over. There were no red marks or bruising on Shayna to indicate she'd been physically assaulted. Shayna was taken to the Highland Heights police station for interrogation. She was read her Miranda rights and initially requested an attorney, but then voluntarily continued speaking to police without counsel present. What happened next shocked even experienced law enforcement officers. Video surveillance captured Shayna's behavior when left alone in the interrogation room. She paced. She danced around the room. She pirouetted. She sang the hymn Amazing Grace. At one point, she snapped her fingers and said aloud, "I did it. Yes, I did it. I can't believe I did that." Followed by, "I'm so good at acting." During her interview with police, she made statements that prosecutors would use to depict her as cold-blooded. She described Ryan as very vain and told officers, "I shot him right here. I gave him the nose job he always wanted. I broke it." She expressed concern about how the incident would affect her future, wondering aloud, "I don't know if anyone will ever want to marry me if they know that I killed a boyfriend in self-defense." Police Chief Bill Birkenhauer stated his jaw dropped upon hearing the nose job comment. He questioned whether she really just said that. He noted the flippant nature of her description of the killing. Shayna Hubers was indicted for murder on December 20th, 2012. Her first trial began on April 13th, 2015, 2.5 years after the murder. The prosecution argued the motive was Ryan's desire to end the relationship permanently. They contended Shayna was a jealous ex-girlfriend, furious about Ryan's planned date with Miss Ohio. Audrey Bolte testified that she and Ryan had a date planned for the night of the murder, and she'd been looking forward to it. A former cellmate of Shayna's, Cecily Miller, testified that Shayna had bragged about the killing, about shooting him in the face and giving him the nose job he always wanted. Miller claimed Shayna discussed legal strategy, stating she was too smart to plead insanity, and would instead plead battered wife syndrome because she had the IQ of Einstein. The defense argued Shayna was a victim of domestic violence, and the shooting was justifiable self-defense. They claimed she lived in fear of Ryan, which was why she usually placed his gun on the kitchen table when he arrived home. Shayna didn't take the stand in her own defense during this first trial. On April 23, 2015, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Shayna Hubers guilty of murder. They recommended a 40-year prison sentence. On August 14, 2015, Judge Fred Stein sentenced her to 40 years with parole eligibility after 20 years. He declared he didn't believe Shayna was a victim of domestic violence and described the killing as cold-blooded. But the story didn't end there. Following her conviction, Shayna's legal team filed for a new trial. On August 25, 2016, the conviction was overturned. The reason? One of the jurors was a convicted felon. Under Kentucky law, convicted felons are prohibited from serving on juries. The juror had a prior felony conviction for failure to pay child support more than 20 years earlier. He claimed he didn't remember pleading guilty and didn't realize he was a convicted felon. The issue came to light when one of Shayna's appellate attorneys recognized the juror's name. She'd represented him in the child support proceedings in 1992. Judge Stein ordered a new trial. Ryan Poston's family would have to endure the entire process again. Shayna's second trial began on August 8, 2018. For this retrial, she retained a new attorney, and the defense strategy shifted significantly. Rather than relying solely on self-defense, the defense focused on extreme emotional disturbance. Under Kentucky law, intentional killing can be downgraded from murder to manslaughter if committed under extreme emotional disturbance, for which there's reasonable cause. The second trial lasted 10 days, but the jury reached a verdict quickly. On August 28, 2018, after just 5 hours of deliberation, the same amount of time as the first trial, the jury found Shayna Hubers guilty of murder. The sentencing phase began. The jury was given a range of 20 to 50 years or life imprisonment. The prosecution sought a life sentence. Ryan's family provided emotional victim impact statements. His father stated Shayna had decimated his life, noting he would never hold his grandchildren. On October 18, 2018, Shayna was sentenced to life imprisonment with possibility of parole. She must serve 20 years before becoming eligible. Her first parole eligibility date is September 16, 2032. The murder of Ryan Poston is a disturbing case of obsession and violence. Shayna Hubers' actions on October 12, 2012 ended the life of a promising young attorney who'd built his own law firm by age 29. Despite her attempts to frame the narrative as self-defense and later as extreme emotional disturbance, 2 separate juries found her guilty of murder. Think about Ryan's final moments. He was in his own home, preparing for a date with Miss Ohio. Shayna arrived, uninvited, unwanted, aware she was being replaced. According to her own admission, she shot him 6 times. Twice in the head, once in the back, 3 times in the chest. And when he lay on the floor twitching, making funny noises, she shot him additional times to make sure he was dead because she didn't want to watch him die. Then she called 911 and admitted killing him. She was taken to the police station where surveillance captured her dancing, singing Amazing Grace, pirouetting around the interrogation room. She snapped her fingers and said, "I did it. Yes, I did it. I can't believe I did that. I'm so good at acting." She told detectives, "I shot him right here. I gave him the nose job he always wanted." She joked about breaking his nose while describing how she'd shot him in the face. She expressed concern not about Ryan lying dead in his condo, but about whether anyone would ever want to marry her after killing a boyfriend in self-defense. The physical evidence contradicted her story of a violent struggle. The living room was orderly. Books and pipes on the table were undisturbed. Shayna had no injuries, no red marks, no bruising, nothing to indicate Ryan had thrown her into a couch or across the room as she claimed. A former cellmate testified Shayna bragged about the killing, laughing about giving Ryan the nose job he always wanted. Text messages showed she'd written to a friend about wanting to shoot Ryan and make it look like an accident. Hours before the murder, a mall clerk heard her say multiple times, "I'm going to kill him." Remember Ryan Poston's name. Remember that he was 29 years old with his whole life ahead of him. Remember that he was preparing for a date when his obsessive ex-girlfriend arrived uninvited. Remember that Shayna Hubers admitted shooting him extra times because he was twitching and she didn't want to watch him die. And remember her words in that interrogation room. "I gave him the nose job he always wanted." That callousness, that flippant description of shooting someone in the face, that celebration captured on surveillance camera, it reveals who Shayna Hubers really was that night. Not a victim of domestic violence, not someone acting in self-defense, but someone who killed because she couldn't handle rejection.